Shop Shock. This is where we discuss how the retail industry can get started in getting back to doing profitable business in the aftermath of our current AI apocalypse. I'm Deanne. I'm a retail expert in store design, operations, and customer experience.
And I'm Chuck Palmer. I am a digital product manager and retail strategist. I work with retailers and brands to understand consumers and make better experiences.
Well, today is going to be a great episode because today we're joined by two really interesting guests. Today we're joined around the virtual water cooler by Josh Wilson. And Josh is a 14-year veteran of the cannabis industry, and he has pretty much seen every corner of the cannabis retail industry. He has opened stores, he's navigated compliance, he's built teams, launched multi-state operations. I think previously, Josh, you've managed a cookies franchise in San Bernardino, California. And now you're on the opposite end of the country, leading a new flagship for Culture House in New York City. You are also, and I found this fascinating, you're the co-founder of the Farmers Cup, which is the first and I think the only cannabis growers contest. So welcome, Josh.
Thank you for having me, y'all. Do want to correct you just on the cannabis event side. We're not the only one doing it.
Okay.
We were the very first cannabis license, consumption, and sales event in San Diego history.
Okay.
There's tons of good competitions out there. Some that are a little bit more gray area, and then some that are on the legal side as well. But we're just trying to, really put on for San Diego and Southern California, for that matter, regarding the events out there.
Awesome. Well, you're currently the best, then. We'll say that.
I'll take that.
And I'd also like to introduce Barney Stacher. And Barney is somebody that I actually work with at Rethink Advisory. So Barney's someone that I think very highly of. He is an exceptional customer experience and tech strategist. He has worked with some of the biggest brands over the years, and it's fascinating to see his bio. Barney has worked with Macy's, with Hyatt, with Playboy, with Hello Kitty, and that's just to name a few. And Barney, that's quite a range from Playboy to Hello Kitty.
Yes. I'll leave any inappropriate comments aside to their connection, but let's just say that my adult professional ADD has served me well in being able to have exposure and experience to all sorts of B2B2C in retail and be informed by hospitality. Service first, hot food hot, cold food cold.
Well, and you've advised brands. What fascinates me is you've advised brands across CPG, across cannabis, retail tech, licensing, food and beverage, and AI. And you are really one of those strategy minds, you and Josh both, that really bring this front of house service first mindset to retail, which is from store operations to conversational AI. And that is really rare in retail today. And it is incredibly important. It's really the keys to success for retail going forward, which is why I'm so excited to have you both here. Because today we're going to talk a different kind of shop. And really, if the Apple Store, Sephora, and pharmacy kind of got together and had a very weird and complicated baby, that would be cannabis retail.
Good way to put it.
So let's talk about that a little bit. And Chuck, why don't you take us down that windy and fascinating road?
Right on. I have been intrigued by the cannabis industry for a long, long time, especially because it is essentially has to be in part retail, but because of compliance and the way a lot of states are set up, it is so many other things too. So exploring this with two professionals is very exciting to me. So Josh, we'll start with you. Tell us about Culture House and how you got there.
Yeah, definitely. So, as I said, my background spans about 14, going on 15 years now in cannabis retail, and a lot of things cannabis for that matter. Back in 2020, May, I had just graduated from SDSU with a business degree, and I was thinking about actually exiting the space. And I ended up getting a job with Cookies at the time in San Diego, opening up their very first store. And then I found myself at the flagship in San Bernardino after we opened up that store and a handful of others. I did about 2 years with cookies at that time, and I had left the brand just because me and my family, we had received our cultivation license. Once we got everything on board with that, and we were also doing the Farmers Cup as well at that time, about November 2023, actually about this time, 2 years ago, Berner and his team basically reached back out to me and said, hey, look, we're going to be opening up a store in New York. And I was like, holy crap, Berner, the founder of Cookies, the icon that is cannabis and hip hop, where the worlds collide, is, reaching out to one of his stronger GMs to kind of open up the flagship for New York City. And with that being said, at first, I know nobody in this room is going to want to hear this, but I was like, no, I'm good. I don't want to do retail ever again. I am good off of retail. It's killed me. It's beat me up and everything. So, and mind you, all those stores that we were opening were doing during COVID. So everything was a little bit more pressure, if you will. But coming into this spot, he kind of convinced me. He's like, hey, look, it's Midtown Manhattan. It's iconic. Please, let's do this, and we'll expand out to the state, and you'll be doing what you do out there. Upon me getting here, with all the rules and regulations that New York has implemented into this space, some things that are never heard of, some things that are very far-fetched, being that, we weren't even going to be at Cookies when we opened up. And I was like, holy hell, what do you mean? Finding out that we're not a micro license, finding out that we wouldn't be able to sell Cookies branded products if we were a cookie store because it would be against regulation. So we kind of just scrapped the whole Cookies idea of being out here, and it became a culture house. So, something that always kind of came into fruition was people would say, is this a cookie store or is this a culture house store? And I'd have to tell them, hey, at the end of the day, it's not on us, it's in us. And what I mean by that is a lot of the teachings, a lot of the isms, if you will, that I bring onto my teams, that I would build my teams around, have been portrayed and have been communicated and have been adapted and adopted into this store. So for the most part, a lot of the things that we care about, the customer service, almost taking things from a Prop 215 days back in California where things are medical and looking at people in compassion and not just a sale, have kind of derived into our teachings and how we take care of things out here. So we're always trying to listen. We're always trying to have an emotional landscape before we just try to make a sale. And I always try to tell my team, hey, look, if I could help somebody and make some money, that's a win for me, right? I'm not just selling something that I might be getting over on somebody about, but if I'm giving you education, I'm giving you customer service, I'm giving you a relaxed feeling while helping out with your day, because some of these people are recreational. Some of these people truly look at us for some type of medicinal help. By all measures, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, I'm not anything. I am a GM right now, right? So at the end of the day, if I can help somebody just have a little bit of a better day, a little bit more of a quality of life, and we can run a business while doing it, and a profitable business at that, I think that's the goal, and that's the win here.
That's awesome. One of the things I find intriguing about cannabis is all those things you just said that it can do in all the different ways. We'll put a pin in that and come back to it, because it's about customer experience and engaging them and pulling them in. Barney, you are in an interesting position to look at the industry as a whole, and in comparison, in the context of retail. Tell us about, what we just heard was a story that is very typical probably in cannabis, where you think you're doing one thing and you got to do something else because of and so tell us about your perspective on all of this.
Well, that resonates with me tremendously, the need to pivot after you've found some restrictions. And whether that goes back to the beginning of the industry with the passing of the Farm Bill, and initially with CBD and packaging and licensing and distribution and on-premise consumable all of those things which required so many multiple pivots. What's nice to know, and what Joshua understands, is that in the end, it's about the consumer, it's about the customer, it's about the engagement, it's about the feeling, it's about the experience. I just discussed with somebody yesterday, it's like information is great, data is great, but without meaning, it's meaningless. And so you can go into a store and you can buy cannabis, but unless there's no engagement with the consumer and the consumer with the store associate, there's no feeling, there's no meaning to it. And then really, what kind of value are you adding to that person's day, whether or not you make a sale? And I always say, just lead with kindness, hospitality, service first. We'll figure out the rest later. And that will ultimately lead to a sale now or later, or a loyal relationship.
Yeah, I've always felt that meaning is the heart of experience because it becomes memorable and it becomes sticky when it has something that you can hang your hat on or you can connect with, right? The industry as a whole, we were talking about this a little bit before we started recording today, is, let's say, new to retail. Barney and Josh. Do you go by Josh or Joshua?
However you feel.
Okay. Dude.
Absolutely.
So where I was going with this was, given your experience, Barney, in retail and then the advent of cannabis, and Josh, you're new to retail, it sounds like, for the most part, compared to the rest of us, let's say. Talk a little bit about the growing pains.
I got them too.
Yeah. A couple there. Good. Yeah. Come back to us when, anyway.
When you need her.
In here somewhere. So for the edification of our viewers and listeners, we're doing this in the morning, so none of us are actually stoned. I'm going to say.
Speak for yourself. Yeah.
Okay.
Right. That's
an assumption. That's an assumption.
I'm not. I am very much a.
If not now, when?
Yeah,
Is
right. I'm very much.
It's not being. My coffee maker broke this morning, so I'm not caffeinated, which is the equivalent of being stoned.
What I'm trying to get at is the bumps along the way of getting to, because I see this as an inevitable track, mature retail. Okay. And I will say that we should never consider this to be, it doesn't have to align and match up with traditional retail because it's so different and unique. I've always said the cannabis industry can learn from traditional retail, but the traditional retail can learn a lot from cannabis, which I think is the benevolent heart of the cannabis industry. Started out as medical for the most part, and a lot of people took that to heart. A lot of people just use that as a regulatory mechanism, right? Talk a little bit about the sort of juxtaposition of cannabis in a retail context.
So I would say a couple of things about that, right? Because at the end of the day, I have been in this retail space for about like 14 years, right, since 2011. And it's so funny because when I came onto Cookies, a couple of the people that were above me came from big box retail. Some of the heads of, Lucky Brand Jeans, True Religion, Macy's as well. And these folks, given, 6 months, they thought they were ahead of the game, that they knew all the ins and outs. And then they started making the joke, how many years have you been in retail? And how many years have you been in cannabis retail? Because cannabis retail held a little bit more of a weight. And what I mean by that is they started seeing all the hoops and everything that we had to jump through, all the regulations, every little thing, limitations, the whole nine. I don't think there is a retail in the world, as far as the industry goes, where they have to go through everything that we have to go through.
Right.
And I always found it so funny because when I would find myself even possibly looking at jobs outside of this industry, just to, throw my hat in the ring and see where I can go with this. I feel like a lot of people who've never touched retail and cannabis or have ever touched the cannabis industry in general, they kind of look down on our experience and they look at us as we're not professional, or we don't look at KPIs, or we don't look at certain trends, or if we don't look at numbers and these things. I would argue that
because you're stoned all the time.
Yeah, I would tell them like, hey, look, just imagine me, just having the simplicity of your job, and they don't like that part either, right?
Right.
Like, oh, your job's a little easier than I would think, but I tell them, right, I do a harder job and I do it high. So
exactly,
maybe I have a little bit of a handicap, but at the end of the day, I would probably hire. And this is me being biased, me coming from this industry, right? The people that I've worked alongside with, the people who I've known going through the hoops that I've had to go through, I would hire those folks on 5 years of retail experience over somebody 10, 15 years of traditional box retail. Yeah. And I know it's because these people are people who have to roll up their sleeves, get grimy, get some dirt on their shoes, right? And really just kind of love a industry that doesn't love us back. Because at the end of the day, right, everything we have to go through is never how we would want it to go. Every regulatory body, everybody on the ground is always like, what the hell are they doing up there? Yeah. We're the stoned ones, right? But we're like, these guys must be on drugs. Because if you say some of these rules and regulations out loud, you're like, who the hell said this out loud and thought, oh, that's a good idea?
Oh, I know.
And that's
crazy? Yeah.
New York, that's not a stab at any place. I've seen problems in multiple countries. I've seen problems in multiple states. I've seen problems in multiple counties, right? So it doesn't have to just be one office. It doesn't have to be one particular place. I don't think anybody knows what's going on in general, but we're taking our best stab at it every day. And You want to talk about somebody who has to have a resilient crown on their head. We are the most resilient bunch of folks you've ever seen. Some of the most creative, some of the most critical thinking problem solvers that you've ever encountered, just given that we have to be in this industry that is constantly evolving. Nobody has the correct formula or the correct success, right? There's always something you could tweak a little bit better. And that's probably anything in general, right? But for us, it's a highlight piece of what we have to go through every single day.
Yeah, it's
100%.
so interesting what you said about the big box traditional retailers and their challenge by understanding or not understanding and having to learn to understand the intricacies of this industry from on every level. Yet at the same time, there are certain things from the traditional retail industry which at some point should be implemented along into the cannabis industry. And it's just so interesting. But the other thing that you said that resonated with me so strongly is who you rely on to hire, who your instinct is to hire. And those are the people. And that's why my mantra is I won't hire somebody unless they come from the hospitality and food service industry. And so to me, that's like, that informs their being, their service first, their understanding of anticipation and need.
It's funny because me and my wife make the joke. She has a grand service background as well. She works in hotels, right? So what is that? Customer service A1, right?
Exactly.
We said, hey, look, with our children, with anybody that we would give a recommendation to, I think everybody needs to serve 1 year in customer service.
Right.
I know some countries say, hey, look, you have to serve in the military for 4 years, right? Hey, I think to be a good human being, put yourself to the ringer, right? Put a year in customer service.
It's like the
what a great idea. Mandatory retail service.
Just have some empathy for that person on the other side of the deal, right? And be able to talk to somebody and have some act right, if you will. I feel like there's a lot of people who've never worked customer service jobs, and it's very telling. And even more so, there's people who think that they can run circles around people in customer service and haven't come from it. No, I just got to be nice to the customer. Yeah, well, wait till that customer tells you that you know nothing and that they know everything and that you're the worst person ever and that you're a waste of time.
Right. It's not getting hit; it's getting back up.
It's getting back up. So,
getting punched again.
You get knocked down 7, you get back 8. That's a good day right there. So
that's right.
Oh man, yeah.
So one of the things that we always like to touch on is the impact of technology and customer experience and how consumers engage a brand role that the tech plays. So Josh, at Culture House, tell us about your tech stack and how far it goes, like CRM, mobile, pickup in store, all that stuff. If you give us a broad characterization of that, because this is a new brand, correct? And that's an interesting concept.
Yeah, and regulation must have an impact on that too.
Regulation has an incredible impact on us. One of the key things that I came out here for was to lead us as a delivery, and that understanding was delivery was going to be hot in New York, and it was going to be New York, which is the mecca of convenience, the mecca of cannabis delivery, if you will, right?
And I'm just going to interject for a second. I live in an area where there's a Van Leeuwen ice cream, and people are paying $9 for an ice cream cone and then another $4 to have it delivered.
Let me tell you something. We do. I don't even want to tell you the sad number that it is. We do close to nothing in delivery, simply put, just because the regulations that are at play, and that's something that I can't control, and I won't get too far into just because I only want to talk about controllables that I can really handle. But right now, the state definitely has us on a bottleneck as far as the capacity of being able to handle deliveries at an appropriate measure. But going into other forms, right, we have loyalty applications. We have a cannabis mobile app. We have websites. We have, every traditional point of contact that you could imagine that comes with the technology backing, we're more than likely using in some sort of fashion. I will say we've gone into the digital world as far as like SEO, and we've gone into digital out of home marketing ads and all those things. This location is very unique as to what we use for technology in regards to marketing. Because before, we would be able to target zip codes and be able to target through electronic billboards or target through ads on your phone or Instagram meta ads, whatever the case may be. But I find because of the enormous amount of saturation within our current location, that if I ping somebody, even as close to the property as Madison Square Garden or 42nd train station, right? There's 5 or 6 dispensaries that they can walk into before my dispensary and get the exact same products that are already probably on my shelf. And so there's not really a measure for me to cast out a net that far. So not to take it away from technology, we've actually gone to a more traditional guerrilla marketing route, right, regarding things and laying off the technology side for marketing routes. Getting into a little bit more technology, I'm not sure if I'm skipping ahead, but we use a lot of insights as far as, me being the GM here, I'm also the purchaser. So I use a lot of different third-party websites, such as, headsets, such as Pistol Data, Hoodie Analytics. And I also use the natural transcripts that come in on my POS, right, for just inventory order reports. And it's so funny to me because as much as, we are seeing an integration of AI into this space, we are seeing integration of more technology being used into this space. It's not just so much feeling right now, we're looking for facts, but all 4 resource points that I use will spit out 4 different data points. And it can have the exact same parameters, the exact same restrictions, the exact same everything, but their formulation on the back end might be tweaked a little bit different, which is why they are a different product. For the most part, I do have to use a little bit of my gut, right? So if I have 4 different resource points, the 5th resource point is my gut. So I weigh all 5 of those options and I say, hey, look, this is probably the right purchase report. This is probably the right reorder point. These are probably the right, routes that we need to go down as far as, keeping our store stocked and our store ready. But it's just so funny because I know we have a point to talk about AI on this podcast. And, the truth be told, it's helping. I'd rather have it than not. But it does do some hurting if you don't know how to really utilize your tools.
Well, I think that's an excellent point. And I say that all the time about utilizing AI, whether using it as ChatGPT to do some research or write a report or a PR release.
ChatGPT is just scratching the surface.
It's just scratching the surface, but any kind of analysis that's being done or recommendation that's being given has to be double checked, or any output. It's like a junior PR agent that's writing a press release for you. If you don't read it, edit it, and confirm that all the facts are correct before you send it out, you're gonna get screwed because unlike ChatGPT, hallucination, your PR assistant may actually be taking mushrooms. So multiple references, though. That's deriving meaning from the multiple data points as a human being. Human beings, we're still very important.
Absolutely. I would want to touch on that piece too regarding human beings still being the important piece. So when I first came to New York, there was a handful of retailers that very successful to this day don't believe in bud tenders. They believe in kiosks. They do have actual personnel that can, point you to a kiosk or point you to the bathroom or point you to a section of the area, but are they really going to speak to product? Not really. And I think, that very well could be a future of cannabis, which scares the shit out of me. But the reality is, as long as I'm in a store and as long as I'm able to afford my bud tenders, I'm going to have my bud tenders. Because at the end of the day, I don't think there's anything that could replace human touch. Are they always right as an AI unit might be? No, but there's a different feeling of talking to somebody and say, hey, I've used this product before. This is what it did for me. We are all bio individuals, but hey, look, maybe this might work for you as well.
Yeah, I've seen this happen, and I'm a little concerned about the sort of homogenation of things like drinks. THC drinks are huge right now. There's concern about the latest loopholes that have been closed and it's causing all kinds of stuff. But it feels like if we don't have bud tenders and people reminding customers and teaching them the complexities of this and not being afraid of the complexities, it's easy to say, oh, these 3 flavors of drinks are the most popular. Let's just keep cranking on those.
Yeah.
The innovation is going to stop and we're going to get 6 SKUs and customers are going to move on to whatever the next thing is. I don't know, like heroin. I don't know. I'm just kidding. But you know what I mean? The complexity and the possibilities of the plant and all the ways it's been processed or not and converted into all kinds of different products. We barely touched the surface on. You mentioned Llewellyn. I would totally eat some ice cream with some sativa in it. Like
Absolutely.
How about a really lovely evening,
Right.
And we barely scratched the surface of food. I mean, we're getting with that with the drinks and stuff. So
I have a question about what you touched on about the information being, commoditizing things and not giving the bud tender or having a human in the loop. And, I wonder if, from Josh's experience with his POS or whatever enterprise system, if that information, is it Dutchie that you use as
I was going to ask
what is being captured, and how easy is it for you to engage your employees or provide your employees with some sort of meaningful information from Dutchie?
So I would say like this, Dutchie it's basically as good as a calculator. It's only as good as what you put into it is what you go and get out of it, right? So at the end of the day, I'm gonna give you the scratch of the surface back to my employees. Hey, look, this is your KPIs. These are what's going on. This is what's new into the store. But I think what's so damn important to recognize about this specific industry that versus any other retail is that we have such a dynamicism that happens with us where the product that was good today is not good tomorrow, and that the consumer is never just happy with that same product, right? There's very few customer segments that are continuously buying the exact same thing that they were last year. And that's the beauty of the plant. And that's also the misery of it as well, right? Is that, hey, a batch that I grew last month could have been the best batch I've ever grown. Oh, and then, last harvest, we had a flood in room 3. Now that room is struggling, right? Yeah. And now everything is different. When people come from a background of like Macy's, or they come from a background of a grocery outlet, I would have to imagine that almost every bag of Doritos is going to be the same. Every milk, for the most part, is going to be the same. Every T-shirt, every belt that you're going to see is going to be about the same. If I bought a product SKU line of 128 eighths of sour diesel from Rhythm, 128 different size jars with, not different size jars, different size nugs inside those jars. Some have a little bit more stem, some don't. Some THC percentage is higher than the other one from the previous batch, right? So there's such a amount of dynamic movement going on within our industry that, for that reason alone, that's why I will never just simply rely on AI or a kiosk for that matter, because I need that human interaction, because we're such a shifting industry and it's always shifting. And aside from the products always changing, that will always be a thing. The landscape is changing, the regulations are changing, the rules and everything that's going on is changing. So I need that human component to walk people through these changes. And don't get me wrong, I still have kiosks in my store. I have about 6 of them. And it's simply put just because some people rather shop that way. I know everybody likes to bring up the McDonald's piece where, hey, look, if I'm a bigger guy and there's a cute, cashier, I don't want her seeing that I'm ordering 3 Big Macs and 2 French fries and 1 drink just for myself, right? But, there might be a cannabis shy person who doesn't want people to know that, like the cannabis professional who has the briefcase, who might be an attorney, right? They might be a big Fortune 500 CEO. They don't want to come in here and be like, oh my God, that guy gets stoned. But lo and behold, that person's buying 3 ounces, 4 grams of concentrate and a gang load of edibles. And he might do that on pickup because he doesn't want anybody to see him. Right. Hey, let me get this, let me get that, let me get this. They want to protect themselves as well. But for the majority of our customers, I would say about last month, it was about 83% of our customers shopped with a bud tender, right? So that's a big percentage. That tells me that people rather be hands-on with a customer or with a bud tender in front of them rather than just doing it themselves. That means that they're kind of curious. That means that they have questions. They are looking for some type of input that, simply put, an electronic or AI component maybe is just not there yet, or they just don't want that. They want that human interaction. They want to hear from the professional or the expert, in the situation.
Well, that aligns with the industry in general. I mean, 80% of sales, retail sales, happen in stores still. And if a shopper makes a sale by talking to an informed employee, the 81% likelihood that the sale will be higher, the amount of the sale will be higher. And so really it's the retailer that's pushing these AI and automated solutions because it reduces their need for overhead, for cost in theory. But they forget about the human side of it and what the consumer wants. So it's not the consumer pushing these solutions.
The big piece for me is that AI, for me right now, where AI is at, and Lord knows the future could be different. Right now, today, AI to me is an add-on. It's
Yeah.
let me help your business. Let me simplify your business. Let me give you back some time for your business. But it's not a replacement of your tools at hand right now. They're supposed to be add-ons. If I'm being honest with you, payroll that would take me about 2 hours to really complete and really knock out, I'm done in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Right?
That's great.
Inventory buying reports. I like to, when I talk about AI, I kind of shit on ChatGPT because it became the front runner of what everybody, chat, right? But it's as I said, it's the scratch of the surface of the AI world. Even though ChatGPT has generated my repurchasing models, right? It has all my inventory order reports in there. And it does give me some of the best provided feedback over these third-party websites that we pay for. At the end of the day, as I said, I think it's a tool that you're supposed to use, and it's a great tool at that, but it's not a replacement yet.
No.
So you mentioned different types of customers, and I'm intrigued both for Barney and Josh. Talk about how you or the cannabis industry segments consumers. So I come from a traditional retail consulting background. And so consumer segmentation was a huge thing to help us understand the complexity of our customer basis. It's not monolithic. Even within customer individuals, we have different value sets at different points in our lives, different points of the day. And so you have this sort of like segment and occasion kind of duality. I believe that came out of P&G years ago. How is that growing and maturing in the cannabis industry?
So I'll tell you like this. Every location is going to be different with their customer segmentation. And, not to go off on a tangent here, but I would argue that almost my store isn't really even a retail at this point. And when I tell people that, they're like, what the hell are you talking about? I've noticed that this store has become more of a convenience store than a retail store. And it's specifically because of location. And every, cookie store I've ever opened up, every store I've ever operated, every store I've ever consulted with, generally speaking, their cart size is above about $75, right? Subtotal, that is. Our location is drastically below that. And it's because I have so many people who are just frequent. Hey, I'm in the area. I need chips and a drink. I don't need my groceries for the week.
Right. Interesting.
I have weed at home. I have, whatever the case is. I need just something to get by while I'm out here. A lot of people think that we're majority tourists, and we're not. I have about a 60% returning customer rate at every single day of transactions, right? So only 40% of my customer base are first time or never returning for that matter type of customer transaction. But I would say, Chuck, that conversation is something that in other stores that has been a very, very big piece point for me. And when I was in San Bernardino, right, really looking at the landscape of who my customer segmentation was, but also due to the amount of evolving, I shouldn't say evolving, I should say the amount of increased amount of stores that are opening up is that your customer segmentation always gets a little bit lower. And I say that because our stores and cookies, right, have always been more targeted towards like hip hop, cultural, cannabis. For that person who wants to say, hey, look, I eat, breathe, and sleep weed, cookies would be one of those stores that you were trying to go to. If they didn't care about that and they didn't want to feel like they were walking into a hip hop, club or something like that, they might go to the mom and pop down the street that feels a little bit more reserved in what they're doing, right? So our customer segments have always been a little bit more towards the urban, towards the more hip hop, towards the people who are immerse themselves into cannabis and they care about genetics and they care about, cultivars and they care about how things are progressing. Don't get me wrong. I still care about the customer segments that are, hey, where's my Blue Dream? Where's my Sour Diesel? The land race, where's the stuff that I don't want the strong stuff. I don't want the 30%, or I want the stuff that I remember from back in the day. But even that's a dying segment at the moment, right? So this store in particular, the customer segments, we've been a little bit less heavy on as far as like the focus point, just because of how much the evolving of this industry has been in this specific state. We were one of, I think, 10 stores when I first opened the store in Manhattan, that is. Mm-hmm. We're at 70 plus right now in Manhattan alone. So, with that being said, I'd be crazy to think that I could really customer segment everything going out. Now, if you wanted to give me the brass terms of what we're looking at for customer segment, I would tell you I'm not many residential. I'm a lot more business folk. I'm a lot more, hey, I'm in the area for a Madison Square Garden Knicks game or a Rangers game. Oh, hey, I need to come do my shopping at Macy's, the world's largest retail store. Whatever the reason that they found themselves in Midtown. But a year ago, when there was not many dispensaries that was in the other boroughs, we were a place to come to. We were a place to say, hey, look, I can customer segment that we got the neighborhoods coming over here. But then, in the last year, they have 2 or 3 dispensaries that pop up in their neighborhood, there's no real reason for them to come here. So I lose that customer segment of the neighborhood portfolio, if you will.
Yeah, as you said, convenience destination rather than a destination
Literally,
location.
I could throw a baseball to the next door over. That's how close we all are.
Wow.
Right? So, it's crazy. And then I don't even need to go on this because it's a lost cause, but the amount of illegal stores out here.
Yeah.
Right? Of illegal stores, and I'll tell you right now, bar none, New York has the best looking illegal stores I've ever seen in my life. They're on 5th Avenue, on 6th Avenue, on 7th Avenue. They look better. Their build outs, that is, look better than any of the legal stores that I've seen for the most part. I would take some of those people out and just say, hey, look, leave that life and come build out a store for us because you have a vision and you don't even know it, right? But at the end of the day, the customer segmenting for us is a little hard to do, just simply put, because it's always changing. There's always something that's getting thrown, like a wrench, getting thrown into our plans for what we would be customer segmenting towards. But that's really just the name of the game. And for me, it took about 6 to 8 months from when we opened up this store to realize that, hey, look, this is not a retail. This is more of a convenience play. But that doesn't change our mission. I want to educate people coming through that door. I still want to be a point of contact for, hey, look, if I don't have the product, but I know this is the product for you, go to this store, they have it. And I know me and Barney were talking about it a couple of weeks ago. Macy's used to have the exact same thing. What was that store?
Gimbals.
Macy's
right? Sells gimbals.
Hey, look, I don't have this, but Gimbals does. Go ahead and go over there and grab it because that's what's best for the customer right now. And as I said, going back to what customers come in here looking for, some of them, hey, I just want to get high. Hell yeah, let's get you high. Some people are saying, hey, I had surgery on Tuesday. I can't sleep. And now they're looking at us as like a consultant for their health. And although, as I said, not a doctor, not a therapist, not anything of that nature, now I need to take the time. Now I need to care. And now I need to really help this person out because they're kind of living on my word on what's going to help them. And God forbid I have somebody who's uneducated saying, oh, yeah, for sleep, oh, I got you this THC sativa edible right now. You're going to have a great time. And they're going to be pissed the hell off at us, right? So I care 1,000 times more than any other convenience store would ever care for their customer, right? But I have to look at it as such too, right? We are a convenience store. There are people who just come in here and they want to be in and out in 30 seconds. And I have it kind of built for that as well. But hey, look, if you want to take your time, and whether it's 30 seconds or 30 minutes you need to spend with us, we'll give that to you.
Yeah, I would imagine there are none to very few people that would go into a 7-Eleven and ask the opinion of the folks working there, whether a Slurpee or a big gulp is the
right.
Yeah.
Would you get the grape or the strawberry water?
What's good this season?
I'll tell you right now, as a high calorie individual, I will go into a 7-Eleven and be like, when the hell did you get these? I was like, I don't know. I'm like, oh, I'm grabbing them, right? But that's about as much help as I get.
I will say roller grill technology is really advanced. And
I don't know. My last roller grill experience gave me food poisoning. So
as it should, I guess. I don't know.
I guess.
Holiday, fourth quarter is traditionally make or break for the rest of us. How does cannabis play in that? Is it do we see an increase in cannabis
Absolutely
at any season, or is it?
So we all are familiar with 420. 420 being that's our Super Bowl usually, right? As about maybe like 7 or 8 years ago, we started trying to do the 7-10 day, right? Which is like the concentrate people's day of celebration, right? But that's never truly taken off. It's just a day of good discount for the small segment of concentrate folks that it is. But I will tell you, over the last 5 or 6 years, we've seen a tremendous increase in Green Wednesday, Black Friday activations.
Yeah, Green Wednesday.
I like that. Specific to that, right? So next week,
get ready for Black Friday.
Yeah. Next week we have Thanksgiving week, which we have that Green Wednesday, we have that Black Friday. We're open on Thanksgiving Day as well. I can't open till after the parade, but nonetheless, this is a spot that, hey, somebody has got a great deal at Macy's, and they're coming over here and they're looking to get a great deal as well. So we do have to kind of participate in that model, but we do see a significant increase. Now, I could be wrong on the history of Black Friday, but getting into the black on November, that Friday is when they finally become profitable for the year. However, we don't really run the same margins and run the same type of inventory on hand that these big retailers do.
Sure.
I have a great inventory turnover of about 23 days. So we're always running at a capacity that is still keeping us profitable. I will tell you though that we boom in Q4. And as much as I would love to say, hey, look, 420 is our biggest day of the year, it's very well rivaled in some cases, in some stores, in some states. It is actually shadowed by the big atrocity that is now Green Wednesday.
It's right.
Wow.
It became a big old stink for us, and we never thought it would be. Yeah.
Well, it's like the spirits industry too, and that's sort of like the closest industry that I guess that we can think about in relation to cannabis is that, of course, people are entertaining more during the holiday season, and of course, gifting. We know,
Yeah.
but so consumption in general is up.
Yeah, it is funny though, because I will. This is my first market that I was actually stationed in. That we have weather, we have seasons, we have actual problems of not wanting to go outside because it's too cold. Mind you, I was born and raised in San Diego for most of my life, so what's a bad day to us? 58 degrees, right? So out here, it's crazy. It'll be 20 degrees. Yeah, it'll be 20 degrees in December. And we are, lines out the door, just crushing it. Every day is a great day. But the second they turn off those beautiful Merry Christmas lights and everything kind of the spirit goes away, January 3rd, January 2nd, we hit a plummet. And it's cold. I don't want to be outside no more. I'm done doing the family thing. I'm done doing the spirit. I'm done doing the holidays. Don't talk to me. So just like anybody in the industry, I'd imagine, cannabis, we are not immune to it as well. January, February are very tough months for us retail-wise, but everything's planned for accordingly, right? As long as you're doing what you're supposed to be doing. We reduce payroll, we reduce all the things that we're doing intake for inventory, and we really try to forecast what we can do as our controllables for those months. But we definitely see an uptick coming back around March because March Madness comes out here. The Big East tournament comes back here. So we are a little bit dependent on our environment, but nonetheless, we'll always be pretty damn good because of our location. Location.
That's intriguing. In some markets, you'll have, because of regulations in different states, you'll have one license per county or something, right? I think Minnesota, is like that or something.
A couple of spots in New Jersey too that only release one license for that town.
Yeah, and you've got 17 on the block.
Yeah.
So, are you involved with the multi-state part of the business, or are you focused on?
No, this current licensee that I work with is just a solo operator in just one retail store.
Okay.
Of course, we have aspirations of doing more because that's where my background really shines.
Yeah.
But due to state specifics that are out of our control, we are not allowed to have multiple licenses, or they're not awarding licenses to people who already have them necessarily, right? So. We could go the route, and we've been offered, and I can't tell you how many times we've been offered just alone, in the last month, people's licenses, right? Whether they're retail, whether they're processing, whether they're manufacturing. But for that matter, it has to be a good deal still. And it's so funny to watch the supply and demand of this whole licensing thing go down, because this time last year, you could buy a retail license with a property attached to it for $1 million. Now they can't get rid of them for $400,000. Wow. Because everything that's been going on, and there's so much of a saturation, and also the proximity laws that have gone into play, which I'm not sure if you guys have followed that, but that's been a hell of a ride. See where that's going to go. We'll know a little bit more in February, of course, but nonetheless, it's been another day in cannabis, if you will.
The volatility is intriguing because sweaters and microwaves pretty much been the same. They might be made in Vietnam this year, and next year it might be Guatemala or whatever, but we're, U.S. consumers, we don't really care. We just want, right? Yeah. But in this case, you have such volatility and such complexity on this stuff. Project out for both of you. Project out 5 years. How do you see that?
Exactly. Yeah, I'm having trouble with later this afternoon.
Project out. Can you sort of?
What?
I've had consulting gigs where I'll do a free consultation. I'll come in, I'll diagnose and do a health check of your business, and people are automatically like, okay, we'll sign. I want you to build a 4, 8, 12 month scenario. I want you to build a 6, 12, 18 month scenario, a 1, 3, 5 year scenario. And I tell them, hey, look, if you're looking for that answer, I respectfully decline, and if you don't want to pay me, that's fine. Yeah. For me, I cannot tell you. I couldn't tell you this time last year what was going to happen this year. I can barely tell you what's going to happen in the next 4 months with all the metric rollout, with all the proximity rollout that's about to happen for February when they get the final say on what's going on with proximity. And God knows, I don't, what's going to be this time next year, right?
Yeah.
There was 100. I don't know the exact number. There's about like 117 or something like that stores online this time last year. There's 523 right now. Could I have predicted that we were going to be up, 400 stores? Absolutely not. I think they're out of their mind for that. I'm not saying that there can't be more retails, but I think they need a lot more of a vetting process. I think they need a lot more of an insight towards this. And, I'll reserve my comments about the OCM and how they do things. But at the end of the day, because of how dynamic this situation is, how fresh it still is, and people don't realize, yeah, we're legal cannabis, but we're not truly legal. We're not federally legal, right? If I told you, hey, what's going on in the next 5 years, everything I could tell you, if you told me, hey, look, if everything stays the same, sure, I can give you an educated guess. But God knows, 2026, 2028 could hit. We could have federal legalization happen, and then every headache that I've ever had at the state level is now non-existent. Now it's federal problems, or the federal can come and say, hey, look, we're legal, but we're going to let the states do what they do, which, pray to God. At the end of the day, I can't give anybody a forecast. I can tell you this is what we're doing for the next 3 to 6 months, and even that can change. But at the end of the day, if anybody's ever walked into a conversation in cannabis and told you, hey, look, I can tell you your 6, 12, 18-month planning, and this is what you should be doing. If it's actually telling you projections, they're out of their mind. There's not an AI capability. There's not a human component. Elon Musk, whatever the great minds are of the world, maybe he's not even a great mind. None of these folks can truly tell you what's going on with cannabis. They can tell you what's going on in the EV world. They can tell you what's going on in medicine. They cannot tell you what's going on in cannabis. And that's just because nobody knows.
That makes it incredibly hard for any kind of business planning, investment, getting investments, trying to line up even a real estate deal to grow. I mean, getting a bank to sign a loan for you to get a real estate deal.
Especially in the multi-states, you got to bankroll in such a way that you can absorb giant real estate deals you have to walk away from, because of regulatory issues and
without putting people's business out there. And I'm not going to I won't bring up the brands, right? But I have a couple mentors in the space who are very, very high C-level individuals in MSOs, in ROs, right, for even this state. And the infrastructure, the amount of investment that they put in the infrastructure out here, we're talking $700, $800 million. Things that are not a guarantee, things that the investor who has the money, who saw the projections because somebody went in there and said, hey, look, yeah, you throw this money in here, 10x, it's cannabis, it's going to be great. It is abysmal for them. And, I think it's the funniest thing because even with my partners, I have to tell them, hey, look, if we throw $1 million into this, they're thinking that they're going to get, $3 million back the next year. I'm like, guys, what industry do we feel comfortable saying that you're going to get your full profitability within, a year? I think what the range is usually 3 to 5 years to go profitable, just that profitability. For us, that's not even the case, right? So we can run a profitable model, but the amount of infrastructure investment that we have to put into it beforehand leaves us with a lot of cost up front, and we're paying that off as we go, right, type of deal. But the most damning part is the amount of uneducated investments that go into things out here. And I hear the nightmare stories, and I hear about people trying to, unload their business onto us even. Hey, I have a location in Soho that I want you to have, and I want you guys to manage. And hey, look, let me look at it. And then I notice that they're paying $60,000 in rent, right? We're talking about $720K a year just thrown away. And then they also have a DASNY build-out loan of another 20 grand. And I'm like, guys, we're talking about $1 million right now, just dead money every year. Your overhead's atrocious. If you're not doing, in this tax regulated, industry, if you're not doing 8, 9, 10 million at that point a year, which these guys were not doing anywhere near that, you guys are in over your head. You guys will fail out. And it's kind of expected. I see it. I've seen it in multiple states. I've seen it even in multiple countries at this point, that if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And you guys know that from a long time ago in retail. But for some reason, people come into cannabis very optimistic and, oh my God, it's cannabis. We're going to make so much money. It's not even funny. But I can tell you from a real personal story, Farmers Cup is not just a cannabis event company, right? We're also a cultivation in California. We received our cultivation license through social equity back in 2022. thanks to my brother's social equity background, when we were building our business plan. Not like a 4-month-old business plan that we were really putting some time into. Shout out to our boy Sean for really putting this whole thing together. Our business plan said that, hey, look, wholesale at that time, we were going to be selling our cannabis wholesale at $1,800, right, for bulk. And by the time we turned on the lights in that facility and got everything on and everything going, we were at $1,200. So we already lost a third of what our projected, revenues were going to be. At that point, it's almost impossible to really try to think that, hey, look, everything else is going to make sense. You just have to be able to pivot. You have to be resilient. You have to not get down. You have to get back up and understand that, hey, look, if you think that's going to be the only problem in your way, this is not the industry for you. Because right when we thought, okay, we'll make this $1,200 thing work, another thing happens, and another thing happens, and another thing happens, right? So, as I said, you have to be resilient. You got to be in this industry because it's not going to love you back. You got to love it as much. And quite frankly, people, they'll say, oh, I've been in this industry for 3 or 4 years. I'm an industry vet. I'm like,
yeah.
You've used the phrase a couple of times, an industry that doesn't love you back. That is, for those of us that love retail, we know that. We know that feeling all too well, maybe. And to hear you say it is kind of interesting because you really have to love this. You have to dig this. You got to love the customers. You got to love the challenges of it. I started out as a merchant. I've done all sorts of things in retail. It was just about 3 or 4 years ago where I came to the realization that it really hasn't loved me back the way as much as I've loved it, and here I am. I'm still doing it. Right. So really appreciate that sentiment. So to wrap up,
we're going to ask you a hard question, and you both have to answer this. And you sort of touched on it. Legal cannabis retailers compete with each other, of course, but you're also competing with the illicit market as well. And you have to pay the higher cost of compliance. You're paying tax, you're paying marketing, you're paying banking services, you're paying the cost of being legit. They are not. How do you deal with this?
Something for me in cannabis, right? And as somebody who's come from that background, right? I was in Prop 215 days. I had the dispensary that wasn't from a legal standpoint, right? But from a medicinal standpoint, we were. But we still had to worry about getting cracked down on from the law and all those things. So I still have a place in my heart for these people who are considered illegal operators. I call them traditional operators, if you will. For me, I can't control anything about that. I cannot worry about things that I can't control because there's so much I have to worry about that I can control at the end of the day. I will say that, does it help us in any way? No. Does it hurt? Absolutely. I deal with even, falsified websites of our own business, right? CultureHouseNYC.com is our business. You can get an order on our website right now with that business. If you go to CultureHouseNewYorkCity.com, it looks like our business, but it's not our business, and it's selling illegal stuff. And I have maybe, once or twice a week, somebody calling up and saying, hey, where's my order? And I'm like, what did you order? And they're like, I sent you Bitcoin, 3 hours ago. And I'm like, holy shit, what's going on? No, that's not the case, right? So I don't really worry about those guys. I don't even really necessarily worry about the legal competition around me either. I am so much more focused on watering my own grass. And at the end of the day, that's really from a cannabis guy, that's the best thing you could probably hear, because I think we would all do a lot better if we just watered our own grass. But at the end of the day, I'm not focused on them. That's a different route. And I'm sure that the person who cares about buying legalized, safe, tested, accounted for cannabis will show up here and they'll appreciate what it is. The person who's always bought from the dealer, the person who's always bought from the grower, the person who's never paid taxes on any cannabis will continue to be that consumer. And I think there's a world where both of us can live, in harmony. At the end of the day, I don't want to worry about that too much, because if I did, I might not have any more hair.
Well, Barney, same question to you. Is there any technology that could maybe help allay that, or do you have any thoughts around the industry in general, or store of the future?
Well, I think Josh is right that the customer who is going to buy legal will buy legal. There are customers, of course, that will buy both sides of it. I think, as with any licensed product, going back to Hello Kitty and Playboy, or Topps baseball trading cards, it's, is there a supply chain authenticity? Right? And so if you're looking at supply chain technologies like RFID from beginning to end, and or holographic or other security certification labeling or safety packaging that ensures B2B to C, from the plant to the table, farm to table, borrowing from hospitality, seed to sale, thank you, that it's verifiable, it's credible, it's authentic, it's the real plant, and you're getting as much current information about that yield, that crop, just like at the farmer's market, and saying, okay, this year's tomato is a little less sweet, so you're going to need to add some sugar to it.
I will say though, in regards to the whole illicit versus legal side, I will never be a person who would be mad at a farmer's market. And the whole thing about Farmers Cup is we were originally the San Diego Cannabis Farmers Market, and my whole goal, and I had a bunch of dispensaries at the time hating on us for this, was bringing farm to table, meet your grower, meet the person who's making your medicine at this time. That was our whole goal, and we made zero money on that. We probably lost money doing that whole model, but it was worth it to us for people to see who that they were getting their stuff from. But to really, hammer it back, I would tell anybody who's listening on this podcast, and you guys included, I'll tell my own mother this. Hey, look, if you're buying cannabis, dry flower, cured flower, from somebody that you know, a grower that you know, I don't care if they're legal or not, that's fine. Smoke it, grow your own even. I always tell people, hey, just try it out. Just grow your own plant, get a clone, get a seed, do whatever you do. It's a hell of an experience. I would even say, hey, look, if somebody offers you a brownie and you trust them, enjoy it.
That's so right.
Somebody offers you a pre-roll, enjoy it. If somebody is saying that, hey, look, I have a guy you can get vapes from, I would definitely be a little bit more hesitant. Because a lot of these vapes, I've seen the nasty world that is. I've seen that most of those vapes do not go through category 1, 2, 3, or even the Cat 4 testing. And anything can look good from the eye, but you don't see the ppm, God forbid the ppb of what residual, what matter is left over. And that's where, when we heard about the cases 3 or 4 years ago about the popcorn lung, right? People were adding vitamin E acetate into cannabis vapes and saying, oh, vitamin E acetate, there's a study online, which you all can see, that firefighters will send somebody to the hospital and they will let them inhale vitamin E acetate if they're a smoke or a burn victim to help repair their lung. And it's done in a controlled area and it's done in a controlled setting, right? But, some trappers went and did that to their own vapes and sold it. Oh, yeah, this is good to go. Not understanding that when you're vaping it, it's not truly breaking it down. It's putting it into a vapor form. Once it re-solidifies, it actually clogs up your lung.
Oh my God.
And that's when people were getting those types of things. So I would not trust the people who do vapes on the black market ever. I would definitely get weed from my down the street neighbor. I would definitely eat an edible at a friend's party. I would definitely do those types of things. But when it comes down to a mechanical extraction, absolutely not. Take your ass to a dispensary that's licensed and legal, has a traceability towards if you ever had an adverse effect. God forbid it's an actual bad input. Hopefully it's just maybe an allergy to a whatever. You can go into the state, hey, look, I bought this from this store. This batch ID came from this processor, was manufactured here, came from this cultivation, and they can run that whole check. And you might be able to save a couple extra, lives, if you will, along the process. These people that were dying from these illicit vapes and such, it was a hell of a loss of life for no reason. And there's no real traceability back towards that. But these vapes, they should always come through a legal, safe manufacturing, safe licensed facility, if you will.
I think the better idea is go see Josh at Culture House.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Even better, right?
Oh, Chuck, do you want to ask the one easy question? We'll wrap it up with one easy question.
I was just going to ask, what's your favorite consumption or strain? I really enjoy L'Orange, which is a strain that I get.
So my family helped, I want to say solidify the genetics for Donny Burger. We didn't create Donny Burger, but my head grower, he basically popped the winning seed for the offspring of Donny Burger. So the prime cut Donny Burger, as we call it, is probably my favorite, cultivar, hands down. I know there's a huge wave of candy and all that stuff is going on right now, and I think candy is going to have its place in the the history books of cannabis. I like the weed that gets me in trouble. I want the weed that when people smell it, they're like, holy shit, that's offensive, right? I
Yeah.
want that.
I like weed that smells like weed.
Willie Nelson would be proud kind of weed.
Yeah. As I said, like, you know, I never had, like, thankfully, I never had a high weed growing up. I grew up in a very cannabis-friendly family. It was not taboo whatsoever. So for me, like, everything growing up was that. But I swear to God, if I showed my mom some of the weed or let her just smell it, she'd be like, oh, that's a nice incense, or that's a nice air freshener. I'm like, yeah, I'll smoke them, not by choice. But if I have my own stuff, it's OG, it's Donnie Burger, it's Kim's, it's some stink. I want some loud, offensive. I want, there's weed in this room somewhere.
Wrap it up.
Yeah.
Barney, what's your favorite?
Oh, I'm one of those, you know, I grew up in the 70s, and so I go back to landrace. You know, I want things that aren't available anymore, like Afghani or Thai or, you know.
Ooh,
Durban.
sounds classic.
Durban poison.
Durban.
There's still some Durban.
Yeah.
Right. You got any in stock?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there you go. That'll put that up on my way out today.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, thank you guys. Really appreciate your time and your sharing all of your intelligence around this. This has been a great conversation, and we really appreciate it. Yeah.
I'll tell you right now, just like I tell anybody, man, come here, get the right education. You don't have to buy a damn thing. No purchase necessary. If you have real questions, we'll have real answers for you.
Oh, you're a definite stop. Next trip to New York. I'm hoping to get there up there in January.
All right, Dan. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody. Have a good one.